and welcome back to the Simplifiers podcast, where we take topics in work and in life and simplify them. And friends, we're talking today about your career. How's it going? Do you enjoy the work that you're doing? Maybe if you're in transition and you're looking for your next role, do you have a crystal clear idea of where you want to head next? Well, today we're going to talk about that and really dive deep into how to have a thriving, meaningful career. Because let's face it, you only get one of them, right? And one lifetime. So let's make it the best one possible. And my special guest today, her name is Dr. Susan Hanold. She's also known as the Talent Doctor, and she believes that people are your most valuable asset in a company. Well, at least they should be. All of the talent in the world won't make you the best company if you don't maximize their capabilities. She's the founder of Plan Z Solutions, where she's also a career coach and can be seen facilitating high-performing team workshops, giving back by serving on the American Cancer Society board here in Dallas, Texas. And she's also recognized as one of the top women in HR technology to follow. So I'd like to welcome to the Simplifiers podcast, Dr. Susan Hanold. Hi, Susan.
Hi, Mary.
I am so thrilled you're here.
Glad to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Of course. So I want to start right at the beginning. Why do people get stuck in a career path that isn't fulfilling or, have that nagging feeling inside of like, gosh, I thought I'd be somewhere better by now. What's going on with people when they're stuck?
Well, gosh, first off, I like to think of myself as your career GPS. I am here to help people navigate so they can be successful. So there's a lot of twists and turns that happen in life, and I really want to be that navigator. So think of me like your career GPS. But what happens when people get stuck? I guess the first thing is, do you know you're stuck? What are the signs that you think you're getting stuck? And I feel like sometimes people just are doing to do. Either they're just coming to their job because they're like, hey, I'm checking a box. I'm really not getting excited. And so I'm just doing. But at the end of the day, I'm not either going home fulfilled or I could be burned out. I just don't like it anymore. So I think sometimes they get in their familiar. So fear of change. I'm in my comfort zone. Or two, they may have lack of self-awareness. Maybe I'm not fully understanding all of my strengths. And so I get stuck.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think also there's got to be a bit there that's, it's hard to step out. It takes a lot of courage to get out of what you know and know well. And let's face it, the job market right now in 2024 is bananas. It seems like there's a ton of incredible, talented people out there looking for jobs and not enough jobs for them. So how would you, say to somebody who's like, well, I really want to step out, but it's very nerve-wracking and scary for me?
Yeah, great question. And I think where the market was 2 years ago, I would have called it the job switcher market. Now the pendulum has swung and wages are leveling out. And so there could be a nervousness, but to all the followers out there, I say, go for it. You have nothing to lose. I mean, like, seriously, I would just say, don't be scared. And sometimes know when to ask for help. I think of things like today, a job is temporary, but the network is forever. So I just believe if some people are scared, just figure out baby steps. And like the podcast, keep it simple, right? Just have a plan and then have a plan that is executable.
Yeah. And I think the first part of that plan is to really understand your strengths, right? Like what you bring to the table for an organization or a company, your secret sauce, right? So how can someone identify and leverage their strengths to really get their career back on path? And in addition, what about their skill gaps?
Yeah, great question. So you're hearing a lot of today's market about skills, right? Know your skills. We're moving from competencies to skills. But before I kind of talk about sort of that trend, the first thing is I'm a big believer in order to find your meaningful career or next job or what you want to do is know your strengths. I would start off with just creating a list. What are your favorite activities and what brings you joy? So that would be one. and you want to do more of it. So do the things you like to do and do the things that are your strengths because they're going to take less energy. So what are things you can do to know your strengths? And this is one of the things I would love to help folks with. If they want to know their strengths, I have a strength survey that they can use, super easy, and it will tell you. And I use it actually in my interviews. I've actually saved the one I did like 15 years ago, and I actually keep it with me all the time because I feel like it helps me in my personal conversations. It helps me in my family life. And during the pandemic, a lot of companies were giving them out free because they wanted you to take them with your family because so many folks were at home together and we had to work together. But that will actually help you know what you're going to like to do for your job. So one, I would say do a strengths assessment.
And that's huge, like especially in an interview situation where it can be a little bit anxiety is rising and you're a little bit nervous and you really want the job and they ask you the question, you're like, you just choke.
And then which is great. You go, oh, by the way, here's this strengths finders I just did or whatever survey it is. And it can say, hey, here it is, according to this survey, because it makes it so much easier to say research says. And oh, by the way, here are my 2 strengths. It's been founded on research. And it sort of takes the, what I want to say, the personality, not the personality, but maybe some, not discrimination, but a stereotype of what you think you are. You can say, hey, well, this is founded research of what it is. So very helpful for you. And it shows you're prepared.
Yeah.
You thought about it.
So what about skill gaps then?
Yes.
The places where you really need to work on things, maybe based on the jobs that you're going after.
Right. So you will see in today's jobs descriptions, you'll see a specific section that says skills required. Look at them. I mean, just be honest with yourself. Do you really want to do these skills? Do you have them? And then make sure they're highlighted in your LinkedIn profile, in your social media, in your resume. Those are what I'm going to call table stakes. Like make sure that's there to kind of check the box. But the bigger pieces on the skills is really thinking through, what do you want to do? What do you like to do again? Because you could probably check the box on a lot of things, but at the end of the day, you're going to be happy because that's what you're trying to do is find, can I do those things? I find too that when you're looking at skills, you really want to, I think you just would be thirst for knowledge. That's really important. So are you open to grow and develop yourself to stay competitive with the market? Because jobs are evolving right now so fast. So really being able to show that you really do want to learn new skills too, and you're able to adapt quickly to those.
Yeah. And I think that the underlying tone there is what does the market need right now? Like it's one thing to know like, man, I really love collecting rocks and I love like putting flowers in an arrangement, which, these are great passions and skills, but does the market need that specific skill right now? Is it in demand? And not to say that people who put flower arrangements together are not in demand because you might actually find your niche, right? Like weddings are big and they're coming back as in person. And so finding the right wedding designer or florist is going to help you, land that job. But ultimately it's like how to keep yourself in demand. Like what does the market need?
That is a fantastic. You are only going to be as good as what the market is demanding or paying for. So you have to know what those skills are. I've got a really good example of my background. So I've gone to school to be an instructional designer, have a master's degree, and love creating and designing training, creating high-performing teams and facilitating that. Well, I got asked to write a training module, if you will, or training curriculum. Yeah. And the client said, well, can't you just do that faster with ChatGPT? Like, just go get it and have it put me out some bullet points. And so really what I had to step back and say is, how has my expertise for my own job or the career that I really like evolving with today's technology? And so I had to quickly kind of do a pause and say, let's step back. I hear what they're saying. How can I start to use this client as a way for me to learn new skills? So upskilling, I think, is really important and not be afraid to change. So I met the client in the middle and I said, you know what, I'm going to use ChatGPT, very transparent. Here's the deliverable. And you hired me as the SME to come in and to look at some of this to make sure it's valid because we know you can't trust technology, right? So always have that second set of eyes to make sure they're hiring you as that SME. But instructional design skills and training, is evolving. So in those skills, I've had to make sure I could go back and say, I am using AI and technology so I can raise the bar in my own value.
And my goodness, there are a ton of AI tools out there in the world of learning and development right now that just blow my mind. Like, really, in the last year or two, things from not only ChatGPT, where you can build out your learning objectives, your slide deck flow, what's said on each and every slide of a presentation. You could even go so far as actually creating the slide deck and the presentation through an AI tool. So there's so much out there that helps, increase the quality of what you're putting out into the world. And I like that idea of really embracing new technology to do so. AI doesn't replace a really smart instructional designer. AI does not replace a human strategist, because our human side is what makes it great. It accompanies, and it's a co-pilot, right?
You're exactly right. I think that I actually got asked the other day by a client that said, well, how are you going to put AI, how are you going to use AI in your job? And or for this. And I said, well, whoa. Let's kind of step back for a second. Let's not lead with the AI. Let's come back and let's start with what's the problem you're trying to solve for.
Yeah.
And it was really good because I had to push back. And you have to say, just like you're trying to look for your career, where can I know to say no and where can I push back? Because I wanted to make sure I just didn't jump on the bandwagon and just say, hey, I'm on the ride with technology. But I feel like it's broader people process technology. So I have to step back and say, hey, what are you looking for as an outcome? And then what's the best way for us to get there? So, yeah.
Yeah. And I really want to put a pin in what you just said there, and go deeper. People, process, and then technology. Because I think when you follow that flow first, the cart doesn't go before the horse, right? But I think that there are ways that technology can simplify your job and also, help you if you're looking for a job and trying to define your career path. Tell me about some tech that you've been utilizing lately that has helped you as well, or your clients.
Yes, great. I feel like you kind of need to find a way to help yourself because the market is competitive. So how do you get feedback to improve yourself to make sure you're going to get that job you want faster and easier? So there are some techniques or some tools that are out there that give you feedback right onto like right now on the top of our screen, there is a app that you can put in that talks about how many times I've touched my hair, or I said, or I'm not looking at you with the eye. Those are good interviewing technology or apps that are out there to use that aren't expensive. So I would totally leverage those. Sales teams, if you're looking for a sales role, anything that's going to be where you want to track to how often you're talking about a topic. So if you're in a client experience role or you want to work with clients, sales, and you don't want to be the talker and you shouldn't really be the one, you should be hearing from your client. It'll actually tell you where you're talking and how much, and take note taker, be a note taker for you. All this, you should be like everybody's using that today. So figure out how to incorporate it into the flow of what you're doing so it's super easy for you. And it gives you a chance to practice. I think sometimes you just need some practice too before you get in for the interviews, because then it'll be more innate and it'll just be remote. It'll just be very smooth.
Yeah. And going back to the last question, I really also want to point out, one of the things that you've told me offline is that self-analysis part is incredibly important. When you take that inventory of what you really know well and where you could, use a bit more training or upskilling on, this is part of that technology's role. Is once you incorporate, and play around with, say, ChatGPT or some other new whiz-bang tool, then you go, oh, wow, I had no idea that my communication style was a bit fidgety and I messed with my hair a lot and, I didn't make eye contact. You go, oh, well, this helps me have clarity, because maybe previously you thought, oh, I'm really good at this, but maybe not.
I think that's exactly right. And I think too that people are using the ChatGPT, right, to help write their intros, their thank yous. All that is so wonderful. But to remember, use it in the language that you use it in. Remember to be very conversational. The two big takeaways I say are be authentic and be vulnerable. So be
Mm-hmm.
your true self when you're writing it. Don't use vocabulary that's not yourself to, and also be able to, I've seen a lot of this where people are really trying to put information out there about themselves and they're not formatting it before it goes out. So you're
Mm-hmm.
just taking it straight from the tool, putting it straight into an email,
Yeah.
and it's obvious. So the people know now that you didn't edit it and make it yourself. So that would be my only word of caution to folks.
Mm-hmm. I agree 100%. Again, you need a human touch with any sort of AI tools that are being utilized now. So let's get back to the concept of a thriving and meaningful career. What does it mean to you personally? What makes your career thriving and meaningful?
I think the one thing for me that I've learned the last couple years is how do I kind of take what I like to do, but also give back? I'm at a point
Mm-hmm.
in my life now where there's a mission that it's tied to. So, like the American Cancer Society board, I am learning and growing every day in that role. It's a volunteer role, but it's also connecting me with doing good in the world. Having
Yeah.
had family that's had cancer in the past, I feel like, God, there's got to be something that we can do about it. How do I make what I'm doing in my background actually meaningful? So for me, community involvement, that has been really important to me too. This
Mm.
in sort of one piece.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that that is incredibly important because haven't we all been at some corporate 9 to 5 job that was a bit soul sucking and you wake up stupid early, you put your clothes on, you go to work, you sit in 1,000 meetings, you drive home and you're like, I have zero, I have nothing left. They took my whole brain. So I'm going to go home and I'm going to sit in front of reality TV and numb myself and then start over again and again and again. I want to say to that person, hey, first off, I see you, I feel you. I'm sure Susan sees you and feels you and knows how hard that is. But also, it's amazing when you can carve out time for something like this, doing community outreach or philanthropic work, because all of a sudden your life does have meaning in such a profound way. And it breaks that cycle of just doing one singular thing, giving all to your corporate job, right?
And you said it well. I had to detox myself, having been part of a big Fortune 100, doing that, a lot of travel. I had to detox.
Yeah.
And when I left that and said, I'm going to start my own business, yeah, it was like, where do you start? And I thought the thing that's very freeing is to give yourself time to test the waters. Do some
Mm-hmm.
skills and some things you've never done before. Maybe you couldn't have done them in a traditional company. So I did that for a while. Like, just be free. You can be product agnostic. You can be company agnostic. You can talk to competitors now. You can talk to the whole market. Give yourself that freedom. And I did that for a while. And I think allowing yourself to see where things stick and then being able to say, okay, well, I learned my lesson on that one. I should have outsourced that one. I love that. But boy, I don't want to do that every day, all the time. And maybe
Yeah.
that's why your networks are good to have. Because then
Yeah.
what I'm finding too is you want to give, maybe somebody else in your partner or your ecosystem is better at doing that than you, or might want to do that. And I think that's also about paying it forward too.
Yeah. So let's talk about rebranding. Because we talked
Mhm.
offline about the importance of continuously rebranding yourself all along your career journey. Why is that important?
I think it's very important because it's what's happening with the marketplace.
Mm.
If you are a person who's been caught through layoffs, reorgs, there's a constant churn right now, especially if you're in the technology space of you see on the marketplace the news of layoffs. You want to stay ahead of the market and you want to be valuable. So in order to, you may have to completely try something new. I've been working with some clients right now that maybe don't want something full time, but say I might want to do something part time. I've
Mhm.
already done the corporate. I want to balance some time with family. I want to do the community, whatever it is. You have to figure out in this rebranding not to be afraid to do something completely different. I
Mhm.
did it and I didn't think it was possible. My husband's like, what are you doing, Susan? I went from doing traditional head of organizational development, leadership development, and said, I'm going to do a 180-degree turn and go do sales.
Yeah.
My husband's like, you've never done that before. How do you think you can do that? And I said, I don't know, but I think I can. And I'm going to try it. So I think it's very important to think about when you rebrand yourself, you need to also have a fresh perspective of how, like, look at your resume, look at your LinkedIn profile. What can you do to elevate some of those skills that you maybe are just hidden down there and bring them back up and just give them a chance? And you'll be so surprised. The one other thing I found too that's really helpful is to have a good coach, because I had a
Yes.
manager who allowed me to ask all those first time questions when you're new to an industry or a job. And I felt like I always go back and thank him and say thank you, because I asked so many, I felt stupid questions, but they also allow me to take some risk to break the box, the paradigm that you're in a box. And somebody who gave me the chance, I knew when I fell off the rails a bit. And then I knew when I got back on. And then I hit my numbers. And then you were successful. You're like, oh my God, I did this. I can do it. I hit my
Yeah.
numbers.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great thing. The rebranding is very important.
Yeah. And just going back to volunteerism, serving on a board or just getting plugged into your local nonprofits, causes and charities that you really, truly believe in. I have cultivated so many great skills in those volunteer roles over the years that, maybe I wasn't given the opportunity to do in my full-time work. And so, like if you're wanting to learn about, I don't know, budgeting and cash flow, maybe you volunteer on the finance committee. If you want to learn how to do sales and marketing, maybe you volunteer on the development or the new member committee. So there's such opportunity at a board level, or even just, donating your time where you can cultivate those skills. And then all of a sudden you start to meet people that are similar to you in your likes and kind of career paths and all the things, which again, back to you, like is widening that network and helping you expand and open some doors, right?
I think you're spot on. I think that you got to expand outside of your traditional areas. So I say, do those coffee talks, go invite people to do a coffee, share an article. I literally got an article last week from somebody who is an executive. And I'm like, how do they have the time to do this? But they were very thoughtful. They just took the time to share this article. And when I read the article, I said, wow, this article is so good. I thanked them back, but it made their name kind of pop back up on my radar. And two, I thought, how thoughtful that they even knew what I had cared about. And so I think if you have an interest in an area or you want to learn, seek out some of those people, share an article, just start friendly, paying it forward with thought leadership. Those are the ways to open the doors to get the conversation. What do you think about this? The other day, I saw somebody who was part of a LinkedIn group that I thought, wow, it looks really interesting. But I just looked on my contacts. I said, oh, I have 3 people that are connected to this group. I had no idea. So I said, I wonder what this group really does. I just reached out to them and said, hey, what do y'all do? Like, what is your perspective? Like, what do you find value in this group? Is it something you would recommend for me to start going to? All of them wrote back. All I did was seek to learn. And by seeking and asking somebody, typically people love to be asked about stuff. So ask them. And I was so happy because I thought, I don't want to waste my time at this meeting if I don't really find alignment. And I was pleasantly surprised.
And what I hear in all of that you said is just having a mindset of curiosity, being open to new experiences, and, you might be pleasantly surprised in what you find. And I imagine that when doing that, when being in kind of that kind of mindset and space, you do open yourself up to new insights. And equally, I imagine people who are listening to me and you right now, like are going, gosh, but sometimes life is tough and I don't have the energy or time or, just sort of sitting in a very scarcity kind of place and going, oh, I'm resistant to any sort of change. What would you encourage that person like to be more open and nimble and just opening themselves up to something different in their career journey?
Yeah, I had to toughen up myself a little bit to get used to some no's. So sometimes I had a friend told me on this journey that you're going to get a lot of no's, but every time you get the no, it's one step closer to the yes.
Mm.
And that always stayed with me. And she would text that to me and I just felt like having a good friend, somebody you could talk to, coach, whatever you want to call it, it's there to help you navigate is truly helpful.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just need to know somebody is there listening with you. So I think if you're just wondering, can I do this and can I get started? And yes, it's a lot of work. But at the end of the day, you want to be happy. And that's for me, my big thing. Why in today's world are you going to be doing things that aren't going to make you happy? And
Mm-hmm.
nobody wants to vent at home. Nobody wants to hear that. Oh gosh, today was such a crazy day at work.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's too heavy. So definitely, I think just having somebody who can every now and then give you a little push and say it's okay. And
Yeah.
and just throw positivity out your way. I think the more positive, I just did this exercise yesterday. I was facilitating a giving and receiving feedback workshop. And one of the exercises that was the highlight was really about providing positive feedback. And
Mm-hmm.
so we did one task, very simple task, like pick up the pencil. And the group that, when the volunteer picked up the pencil and they got positive feedback, they did it so much faster than with the negative feedback
Hmm.
or mixed feedback. So it went back to me and it just validated the more you can get that affirmation that you're on the right track, you're going in the right direction. Thumbs up. I know, hey, I think it's like social media, right? We're so used to getting thumbs up, but you really do need them for people to kind of keep giving you the push. You're okay. Just keep going.
Yeah, because I think our very core psyche is surrounded by fear, right? It's either fear or love, and which one are you going to polarize to? And I think that having that affirmation and validation, not only from outside, from other people, but start to really say it to yourself, like, I am on the right path. This is the work that I'm meant to do. This is, the time I'm putting into it is leading me to something really great, is incredibly important. And it made me think about what you said earlier. This is what a great career coach should be doing for you as well, right? Being there as your accountability partner, your running partner, helping you along the path to get to clarity and then get to action, right?
Well, and I had this candidate I was working with who wanted to find the part-time opportunity. So she'd been an executive, and she says, I'm just done with that. But she was actually, I couldn't believe it, lacking confidence. She
Mm.
said, it's been a while for me since I've been back in the market. It's been about 5 years. I took some time off to help my father who was ill, and I'm a little bit out of touch. And
Hmm.
I did not know she was lacking the confidence because we got her resume ready. We got her all on LinkedIn. She was going to apply for a job. And then we got ready to interview, and she just did not feel comfortable talking about her skills. And I
Mm.
said, whoa, you're like overqualified. You have so many fantastic skills. Like, I was so thrown back. So, Mary, to your point, it's sort of, you need the confidence and don't underplay your skills. Like, I believe so many people undersell what they have. And then I think the other piece of that too is, so we were talking about AI, and a lot of people are jumping on that bandwagon. So
Hmm.
the extreme of that is don't oversell either. So if
Sure.
you say, hey, I've been using AI and here's where I've been using it, truly be able to give a good, real example. So
Yeah.
I balance with, hey, have confidence, but also be able to say, I've got a real example. So then if somebody did ask you, you could speak with good relevance, right?
So then flipping the switch to, and that kind of sparked me onto another question. Somebody who's been an executive for a long while and feeling like they're lacking confidence. What are some other key mistakes that people make in kind of the mid or late portion of their career that others should avoid, specifically if they're trying to get their career back on track and they're trying to get to a place where they're thriving again? What mistakes have you seen people make?
I just think one, getting stagnated with technology and trends. So one
Hmm.
is, you got to stay on top of what's going on. And it is hard today to stay on top of stuff. So I read a lot. I recommend reading, looking at who are the thought leaders in the area, who are going to be people to follow, read. So all of that. So one mistake is not staying on top of the trends or the market. So be relevant, know what's going on, especially to your homework if you're going to an interview. I've also seen some senior leaders where they have not been open to change. So I specifically, one CFO who was in transition came to me, chief financial officer, and had been very fortunate and had all these jobs to just keep landing. Well, now he's a little bit older and he's finding that what got him to where he is today is not going to keep him there. It is a multi-generational workforce, and he assumed he could keep leading the same way. And so the good news was I liked that he actually was having coffee and asking for feedback, but then you got to be open to receive it. So I'm not sure if he was really listening to the feedback. So one, I was open to the feedback and be willing to listen. And the last one is, I would say, is neglecting your personal brand. Make sure the brand represents and is fresh for what you want to do today. And it's painful. I did it. I actually had my sister and a good friend look at my profile, and they were brutally honest. And I hurt for a while. It's hurtful. But the mistake is not taking in that feedback on that brand and on your profile and just having somebody give a fresh look at it and say, okay, what am I missing here? What could I be leveraging on those strengths that I'm not leveraging? It was hurtful. I put it on a whiteboard right by, so I could kind of check off that as my to-do list. And they kept asking me, what are you doing, Susan? What are you doing, Susan, on this? And I'm like, darn it, y'all get off my back. But it was very helpful.
Oh, daily incremental action is always the best way to get to where you want to go. I think we all can get stuck in sort of the thinking about it and putting together a perfect plan in our head, the overthinking. But the truth is, when you take daily incremental action towards what it is you want, you eventually will get to where you want to go. So I highly encourage you guys, reach out to Susan. She is a wealth of knowledge. Her website is planzsolutions.com. She's also on Instagram and LinkedIn. I will put all of those links in the show notes for you guys over at thesimplifiers.com. So make sure to check out. And she's also offering 2 free items just for our listeners. If you reach out to her on LinkedIn or say on Instagram and send her a DM and ask, she's more than happy to do a free introductory call and also do a strengths assessment with you. So, cash that in, get another set of eyes. And she is that fresh set of eyes and a career coach that can help guide you to where you want to go next. So, Susan, as we wrap up, I ask these questions to everyone that comes on the podcast. And so here they go for you as well. What's one book or blog that you're reading these days that's either inspiring you or challenging your belief system and kind of poking holes in it?
Okay, first off, I joined a book club, which I haven't done a book club in quite some time. So I am now part of a book club and reading. So that's good. But a book that I would recommend that I just read, it's called Jackfruit Leadership. And why I like it is because it's by Dana Dillard. And Dana and I worked together a few years back, and I always respected her as a manager and as a leader, having to have her as a partner. But what I find inspiring about the book is that it also brings very practical. We know Dana was on your show already, right? Very good practical leadership experience stories, but also what I liked was that it brought together building inclusive leadership. So it brought the DE&I lens to it. And I've done a lot of work around this area, really passionate about it. So I love that she's blending the two together, and it's a great book and a lot of good examples.
Such a great book. I read it recently as well. Jackfruit Leadership by Dana Dillard. We'll put the link in the show notes for you guys if you want to check it out. Also, in her episode, she simplified the understanding the 5 different generations that are in the workplace right now. It was a fascinating conversation. Loved it, loved it, loved it. So tell me, who's somebody in your network, somebody that you know personally that you just feel is up to brilliant things? If we were to shine a spotlight on them, who knows, maybe one day we'll have them on the podcast. Who would that be?
Okay, somebody that jumps out right away is somebody I think is really hot right now and who's been very inspiring to me is Kim Diamond. She is starting off on her own business, doing recruiting, professional recruiter. But why she's been inspiring to me is she is wanting to help people bring their resumes to life. So it's boring when you look at a resume and you read it and it's like, oh gosh, it's one dimensional. She's like, why can't I make these folks like, I'm going to tell the story about their resume in a video. And Mary, she's like you. She's like, she's taking like what you're doing and she's just going to do it and help people highlight their careers by video. And I think it's really inspiring. She's like, I am going to tell people stories for them who can't tell their stories through their resumes. I'm going to help them.
That is so smart. We'll link her up in the show notes for you guys so you can check her out as well. I believe gratitude and simplicity go hand in hand. Tell me, what are you grateful for today?
Mary, I got to say I'm grateful for you and grateful for Dana, who helped introduce me to your podcast. But mostly I'm happy to be healthy and healthy and a wonderful family. So gratitude for that. And blessed for what I have today. I think that's always what you have to be appreciative for.
1,000%. I mean, this life goes by so fast. So let's make it a good one, right? Yes. Again, all the links are in the show notes for this episode over at thesimplifiers.com. You can find it there. My final question for you today, Dr. Susan, is this. Someone somewhere is listening to you and I right now. And let's face it, they're feeling real stuck. They are feeling like their career has just gotten incredibly stagnant. They see a looming layoff happening and they're just really not sure where to go next. What's one thing you could whisper in their ear right now just to encourage them in this moment?
Talk to someone. Don't go it alone. And take the ego out. It is so humbling, but the more you tell people, the less heavy it's going to be.
Susan, thank you so much for your time today.
You're very welcome.